The boxes hit the lawn before she even stepped out of her car. Clothes, shoes, a broken picture frame, everything she owned scattered like garbage in front of the house she had quietly paid for. Inside, through the open door, her husband stood with another woman, wrapped in a silk robe that wasn't hers to wear. "Take your things and leave," he said, like she was a stranger. He thought she had nothing, no leverage, no future. What he didn't know was that every inch of the life he was standing in existed because of her. Welcome to today's story. If you enjoy emotional drama and shocking twists, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. And before we begin, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. 3 hours earlier, nothing had seemed broken, just quietly wrong. Naomi Carter had noticed it the moment she pulled into the driveway. The sprinklers were still running. They shouldn't have been. She had programmed them to shut off at exactly 4:30 every afternoon. It was 5:12 now. The water sprayed in slow, steady arcs across the perfectly trimmed lawn, soaking the cardboard boxes that sat unevenly near the curb. Her boxes. She didn't rush out of the car. She didn't even turn off the engine right away. She just sat there, hands resting lightly on the steering wheel, watching the water darken the cardboard, watching the edges collapse under the weight. Something inside her went quiet, not panic, not anger, just still. When she finally stepped out, the air felt heavier than usual, the smell of grass mixed with something sharper, fabric softener, maybe. One of the boxes had tipped over completely, spilling a pile of folded clothes onto the ground. Her clothes. Some still in the dry cleaning plastic she had picked up the day before. Naomi walked slowly up the driveway. Her heels didn't sink into the grass. She stayed on the concrete past the boxes, past the scattered pieces of a life she had built piece by piece without ever asking for credit. The front door was already open. She hadn't touched the handle. Brandon stood there, blocking the entrance like he belonged in that space more than she did. He wore the navy shirt she had ironed that morning, the sleeves rolled up casually. His expression wasn't guilty, it was annoyed, like she was late. Behind him, leaning against the hallway wall, was a woman Naomi recognized immediately. Amber, blonde, younger, sharp smile. She had seen her once before at a company event. Hovering too close, laughing too loud at things that weren't funny. Amber wasn't dressed for guests. She was wearing Naomi's robe, the silk one Naomi had bought for herself last year. The one she only wore on weekends. Naomi's eyes lingered on it for half a second longer than necessary. Then she looked back at Brandon. "I packed your things," he said. Just like that. No build-up, no explanation. His voice was flat, almost bored. "I think it's better if you stay somewhere else for a while." Naomi studied his face, really studied it. The lines she knew. The small crease near his left eyebrow when he was irritated. The way his jaw tightened slightly when he thought he was being reasonable. 6 years of marriage, reduced to this. "For a while?" she repeated. Amber let out a soft laugh behind him, not loud enough to be called out, but not quiet enough to be polite. Brandon didn't even look back at her. "Don't make this difficult, Naomi," he said. "You know things haven't been working." Naomi didn't move, didn't argue. Her gaze shifted briefly to the interior of the house, the kitchen island she had chosen, the light fixtures she had installed, the couch she had paid for outright because Brandon said financing made more sense. Everything looked the same. That was the strange part. Nothing inside had changed. Only the people. "How long?" she asked. Brandon exhaled like she was asking the wrong question. "Does it matter?" "Yes," she said. This time, her voice was quieter. Not weak, just precise. Amber stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on Brandon's arm, like she had already replaced Naomi in every possible way. 2 years, Brandon said finally. Give or take. 2 years, Naomi. Let that sit. 2 years of dinners, conversations, holidays, shared space, 2 years of lies spoken in the same rooms she had designed. "You need to go," Brandon added. "I don't want to escalate this." Escalate. The word hung in the air like a warning. Naomi nodded once. She could feel it now. The shift. Not in the house, in him. In the way he stood there, convinced he had them upturned. Convinced this was his decision. His life. His house. Her phone buzzed softly in her bag. She didn't reach for it. Instead, she turned, walked past him, and stepped onto the lawn. The water had soaked through the cardboard completely now. One box collapsed under her hand when she tried to lift it, spilling books and documents onto the grass. She crouched down without a word and began picking them up, one by one, carefully. Behind her, the door closed. She heard the faint sound of laughter from inside. It didn't echo the way it used to. Naomi carried the first box to her car, then the second, then the third. No rushing, no shaking hands, no tears. Across the street, an older woman stood on her porch, watching. Naomi gave her a small nod. The woman nodded back, her expression somewhere between pity and curiosity. By tomorrow, the whole neighborhood would know. By next week, people would have their version of the story. Poor Naomi, kicked out, replaced. Naomi placed the last box into the trunk and closed it gently. She walked around to the driver's seat, paused for just a second, and glanced back at the house, at the blue door, at the life she had built quietly, deliberately, without ever asking to be seen. Then she got in. She didn't look back again. The engine started smoothly. This time, she answered. Yes, a calm male voice came through immediately. Professional, controlled. We detected unusual activity at your residence. Do you want us to intervene? Naomi's eyes stayed on the road ahead. No, she said. A brief pause. Are you certain? Naomi's grip on the steering wheel tightened slightly. Not from fear, from decision. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, carefully, should we prepare to remove him from your property? Naomi allowed herself a small smile. Cold, measured. Give it a little time, she said. Naomi didn't drive to a friend's place. She didn't call anyone to explain what had happened. She drove straight into the city. Traffic was heavy, the late afternoon rushed building in waves, but she moved through it without frustration. Her hand stayed steady on the wheel, her expression calm. If someone had looked at her from the outside, they would have seen nothing unusual. Just another woman leaving work, heading home. Except she wasn't going home. Not the one Brandon thought she had. Her phone rested on the center console. The call from earlier still echoed in her mind. Should we prepare to remove him from your property? Not yet. She meant that, because this wasn't just about being thrown out. It was about understanding how far things had already gone. By the time she reached downtown, the sun had dipped low enough to cast long shadows between the buildings. Glass towers reflected gold and orange light across the streets. Naomi turned into the underground entrance of a hotel most people only saw from the outside. She didn't check in at the front desk. A man in a suit was already waiting near the private elevator. Ms. Carter, he said, stepping forward immediately. Respect. No hesitating gave a small nod. Naomi gave a small nod. Thank you, Daniel. Your suite is ready. Everything you requested has been arranged. Of course it had. Elevator doors opened without her pressing a button. She stepped inside. Daniel following only long enough to swipe a card and select the top floor. Then he stepped out again, leaving her alone. The ride up was silent. When the doors opened, she walked into a space that didn't look temporary. It looked prepared. Clean lines, neutral tones, a full glass wall overlooking the city. Her suitcase, one she hadn't packed, sat near the bedroom door. Her laptop was already on the desk. Her clothes were hanging in the closet. Everything moved ahead of her, as if her life had already adjusted before she made the decision to leave. Naomi stepped toward the window. For a moment, she let herself just stand there. No Brandon, no laughter behind closed doors, no pretending, just quiet. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she picked it up without hesitation. Richard, are you settled? His voice came through, calm but sharp underneath. Yes. A brief pause. Do you want me to proceed? Naomi didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned slightly, her eyes landing on her reflection in the glass. Same clothes, same face, but something had shifted. Not everything, she said finally. We move in phases. Richard didn't question it. He never did, understood. What's the first step? Naomi walked to the desk and opened her laptop. The screen lit up instantly, secure login already waiting. Send me his full employment file, she said. Performance reviews, compensation history, internal notes. Everything. You already have partial access. I want all of it. A pause. Then, you're thinking about termination. I'm thinking about facts. Another pause. Longer this time. They've been involved for over a year, Richard said carefully. Possibly longer. Naomi's fingers stilled for half a second. I didn't ask for speculation, she said. Of course. The file arrived within seconds. Naomi opened it. Brandon Mitchell. Marketing manager. Salary just under 6 figures. Performance reviews, excellent. Bonuses approved. Promotions justified. She scrolled slowly, her eyes scanning every line, every approval, every signature, every note from upper management praising his growth, her decisions. She had built his career piece by piece, quietly adjusting things behind the scenes. A recommendation here, a push there, making sure the right people noticed him, making sure he felt successful. And every night he came home and complained about how undervalued he was. Naomi leaned back slightly. There it was. The imbalance, not just money. Perception. He thought he was building something. He thought he was climbing. He never once asked who built the ladder. Her phone buzzed again. A second file. Amber Lewis, administrative assistant, mid-level clearance, standard contract. Except for one line Naomi knew well. Morality clause. She had written that clause herself years ago. Clear language. No relationships with married employees within the same corporate structure. Immediate termination if violated. Naomi's lips pressed together slightly. Richard. Yes. Send this to legal. Quietly. No action yet. Understood. And pull security logs from the last 2 years. Cross-reference their schedules. You want confirmation? I want proof. Richard exhaled softly. Not hesitation. Just recognition. You're not going to confront him. No. Naomi closed the laptop halfway. Not yet. She stood again, walking back toward the window. The city below looked different from up here. Smaller. Controlled. Her phone buzzed one more time. A message this time. From Brandon, we need to talk. This is getting ridiculous. Naomi stared at the screen for a long moment. Then another message. You can't just leave like that. This is our house. She let out a quiet breath. Our house. She typed nothing. Didn't respond. Instead, she locked the phone and set it aside. Naomi. Richard said, still on the line. There's one more thing. She didn't turn. Say it. The board meeting next week, they've been asking for final approval on the restructuring deal. Naomi's gaze sharpened slightly. Move it up to tomorrow morning. A beat. That's short notice. Then make it work. Silence. Then, yes, Mom. Naomi ended the call. For the first time since she had walked into the house earlier that day, something inside her shifted from stillness to intention. Not anger. Control. She opened her laptop again, pulled up another system, higher level access, restricted. Her name didn't appear anywhere visible, but her authority did. She reviewed the restructuring documents, the approvals, the signatures waiting. All of it paused, waiting for her. Naomi leaned forward slightly and clicked open Brandon's department file again. Her eyes rested on his name. For a moment, nothing moved. Then she whispered, almost to herself, everything you have. Her finger hovered over the screen. Was never yours. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a different name, she answered. Ms. Carter, the lawyer said. Professional and direct. We've reviewed the property structure. At your request, we can initiate removal proceedings immediately. Naomi's gaze didn't leave the screen. Not yet, she said again. But prepare everything. A pause. How soon do you want to act? Naomi finally closed the laptop. Her reflection stared back at her in the darkened glass. Cold, clear, ready, tomorrow, she said, and ended the call. Naomi didn't sleep. She sat at the desk with the city glowing beyond the glass, the laptop casting a soft light across her face. The files kept opening one after another. Dates, transactions, schedules, patterns. By 2 in the morning, the picture was no longer vague. It was precise. Send me the full timeline, she said quietly into her phone. Janet's voice came through, steady and efficient. You already have most of it. I want all of it. Cross-checked. Clean. A pause, then understood. The next file came in heavier. Not just HR records. Not just compliance photos. Naomi hesitated for half a second before opening them. The first one wasn't dramatic. Brandon sitting across from Amber at a small restaurant. Casual. Close. Too close. The timestamp was a Tuesday afternoon. Naomi remembered that Tuesday. He had texted her, running late. Back-to-back meetings. She moved to the next photo. Same restaurant. Different angle. His hand resting near hers. Not touching. Almost. The kind of almost that wasn't accidental. Her chest didn't tighten. Not anymore. A hotel lobby. A parking garage. Another restaurant. Then another. Always during hours he had explained away, always with reasons she had accepted. Naomi leaned back slightly, exhaling slowly. Janet, yes, how long? 2 years and 3 months. The words settled in the room like something solid. Naomi closed her eyes for a brief second. 2 years. 2 years of shared dinners. 2 years of small talk. 2 years of being told nothing was wrong. When did it become physical? About 6 weeks after first contact. Naomi nodded once, even though Janet couldn't see us. Of course it did. Anything else? A pause. Yes. The next file opened. Screenshots. Messages, not between Brandon and Amber, between Amber and her friends. Naomi didn't want to read them, but she did, because not knowing had already cost her enough. Amber, he thinks everything he has is because of him. Friend it? Amber, no, or his wife has money enough. The house, most of it, he's clueless. Friend, then why him? Amber, because he's easy, and honestly, she's boring. I don't know how he stayed that long. Naomi's fingers tightened slightly against the edge of the laptop. Boring. The word didn't hurt. It clarified. She kept reading. Amber, I'm basically upgrading him. He deserves someone who actually looks like something. Friend, you're terrible. Amber, I'm realistic. Naomi closed the file, not abruptly, deliberately. She sat there for a long moment, staring at nothing. It wasn't just betrayal, it was contempt. That was the part that stayed. Not the hotels, not the lies. The way they talked about her when she wasn't in the room, like she was invisible, like she was less. Naomi, Janet said quietly. There's more, I know, there's audio. That made her pause. From where? His car. Naomi looked up slowly. The BMW? Yes, of course. She had approved that lease herself. Monitoring system. Standard, play it. There was a brief shuffle on the other end. Then his voice, clear too clear. I told her today, Brandon said, a laugh in the background. Amber, what did she do? Nothing. That's what was weird, she just stood there, didn't even fight. Amber laughed again. Maybe she knows you're too good for her. A pause. Then Brandon again, quieter but sharper. I mean, she's fine, she's just boring, you know? Same routine every day. No ambition, no spark. Naomi's eyes didn't move. She was safe, he continued. But I don't want safe, I want more. Amber's voice softened. You have more now. Yeah, he said. I do. The audio stopped. Silence filled the room again. Naomi didn't react immediately. No tears, no anger, just stillness. But something inside her had shifted, completely. Compile everything, she said finally. All of it. I want a clean file. For legal? Not yet. A pause. You're sure? Naomi looked at the city again, lights flickering across buildings she had influence over. Systems she understood, people who would act if she told them to. I'm not done understanding yet, Janet didn't argue. File will be ready by morning. The call ended. Naomi closed the laptop and stood. Her reflection stared back at her again. Same woman, but no longer the same role. She picked up her phone. New messages. Brandon. 21 missed calls now. Text after text. Where are you? This isn't funny. We need to talk about bills. You can't just disappear. Then one more. Amber's name appeared in the thread. A forwarded message. She's not answering him either, Amber had written. Naomi stared at it for a second. Then she locked the phone. Not worth responding. She walked into the bedroom and changed. Simple clothes. Clean. Controlled. When she came back out, the laptop screen lit up again. A new message. Richard. Naomi sat down slowly. What's phase 1? He asked. She didn't hesitate. HR, she said. Terminate both employees. Violation of company policy. A pause. Tomorrow morning? Yes. It'll raise questions. Then we answer them. Another pause. You're certain? Naomi's gaze didn't shift. They signed the contracts. Richard let out a quiet breath. Understood. And Richard, yes. Make it clean. Of course. She ended the call. For a moment, the room was quiet again. Then her phone buzzed. Another message. Not from Brandon, unknown number. She opened it. A short message. Professional. Direct. We've confirmed the ownership structure. All assets remain fully under your control. No exposure risk. Naomi read it once. Then again. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She typed one sentence. Proceed as planned. She hit send. And this time, when she looked at her reflection in the glass, there was no hesitation left. Only timing. Her phone buzzed again. Richard. They've both been scheduled for a meeting at 10 a.m., he said. HR and legal will be present. Naomi leaned back slightly. Good, what about him? Richard asked carefully. After tomorrow? Naomi's eyes rested on the dark city, on the life Brandon thought he understood, on the world he thought he controlled. "We let him feel it," she said quietly. "Feel what?" She didn't answer right away. Her fingers tapped once against the desk, then stopped. "Everything he thinks is his," she said, starting to disappear. Silence on the other end, then understood. Naomi ended the call. The room went still again, but this time, it didn't feel empty. It felt inevitable. She reached forward and closed the laptop completely, and in the reflection of the dark screen, she looked like someone who had already made the decision. Tomorrow morning, his world would start to break at exactly 10 a.m. Brandon walked into the conference room expecting a promotion. He had dressed for it. Pressed shirt, clean shave. The watch Naomi had given him still on his wrist, catching the light as he adjusted his cuff. He even smiled at the receptionist on his way in, the same easy confidence he always carried when he believed things were going his way. He didn't notice the way the receptionist avoided eye contact. Inside the room, 2 people were already waiting, HR and legal. That was the first crack. Still, he didn't panic. Not yet. "Hey," he said, pulling out a chair. "What's this about? I wasn't expecting." The HR director didn't smile back. "Mr. Mitchell, thank you for coming. Please have a seat." He sat. The folder slid across the table toward him. He glanced at it confused, then opened it. The first page was simple, termination notice. The word didn't register immediately. "What is this?" he asked, letting out a small laugh. "There's got to be some mistake." "No mistake," the HR director said calmly. "We're terminating your employment effective immediately." The room felt smaller. Brandon blinked, reading the page again, slower this time. "Termination for cause." His voice sharpened. "What cause?" The lawyer spoke this time, measured and precise. "Violation of company policy, specifically, breach of the professional conduct agreement you signed upon employment." Brandon's confusion turned into irritation. "I've never violated anything. My reviews are excellent," the HR director said, nodding once. "Yes, they are. That is not in question. Then what is?" The second page was placed in front of him. Evidence summary. Dates, locations, names, Amber. His stomach dropped slightly, but he forced himself to stay steady. "This is ridiculous," he said quickly. "You're firing me over a personal relationship?" "It is not considered personal under company policy," the lawyer replied. "You engaged in a relationship with another employee within a restricted reporting structure, while legally married, in violation of signed contractual terms." Brandon leaned back, scoffing. This is corporate overreach. "You can't control who I date. We can enforce agreements you signed," the lawyer said, "and the policy is clear." The HR director's tone didn't change. "This has been ongoing for over 2 years. That hit differently. Not because it wasn't true, but because they knew. How would you even?" Brandon stopped himself. "Doesn't matter." He straightened, trying to regain control. "Okay, so what? You're just firing me? No warning? No write-up? Nothing?" "You acknowledged in your contract that violations of this nature may result in immediate termination." The words landed flat. Official. Final. Brandon looked between them. "This is insane," he muttered. "Someone's targeting me." Neither of them responded. That silence said more than anything else. His jaw tightened. "Fine," he said, pushing the folder slightly away. "Then I want to know who made this call." The HR director held his gaze. This decision was approved at the highest level. Something in the way she said it made Brandon hesitate. Highest level. He didn't like the sound it either. "Not yet." "Whatever," he said, standing abruptly. "You'll hear from my lawyer. You are free to pursue that options," the lawyer replied evenly. Security appeared at the door. That was new. Brandon glanced at them, then back at the table. "You're escorting me out?" he said, disbelief creeping in. "It's standard procedure," the HR director said. Standard. Like he was nothing. Like he didn't matter. Like everything he thought he had built here meant nothing. Brandon grabbed the folder and walked out, his chest tight, his mind racing. This didn't make sense. It couldn't. He had been doing well. Better than well. Everything had been lining up. The promotion was supposed to come next quarter. He knew it. Everyone knew it. So, why now? Why today? His phone buzzed before he even reached the elevator. "Amber." "Hey," she said immediately. "Did they call you in too?" Something in her voice made his stomach twist. "What do you mean too?" "They just told me to come to HR. Like right now. Do you know what this is about? Brandon stopped walking. The hallway suddenly felt too bright, too loud. Amber, he said slowly, don't go in there alone. What? Just listen to me. Don't say anything. Don't admit anything. Just let them talk. There was a pause. You're scaring me. I'll call you in 5 minutes. He hung up, his hand tightened around the phone. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. This was targeted. But by who? And why? He stepped into the elevator, his reflection staring back at him in the mirrored walls. Same suit, same man, but something had shifted. By the time he reached the lobby, his phone buzzed again. Amber, he answered. They fired me, she said, her voice shaking. The words hit him harder than his own termination. What? They said the same thing. Policy violation, relationship. I tried to explain, but they didn't even listen. His mind raced, both of them. Same reason, same time. This is coordinated, he said under his breath. Just stay calm. I'm not calm, she snapped. I just lost my job. What are we going to do? We. The word landed differently now. Brandon didn't answer immediately, because for the first time since all of this started, he didn't have one. I'll figure it out, he said finally. He always said that. He always believed it. But this time, it sounded thinner. He stepped outside into the parking lot. The sunlight felt harsh, real. His phone buzzed again. Another message. Not Amber. Not Naomi. Unknown number. He opened it. Your access to company systems has been revoked. Please return all company property within 24 hours. Then another message almost immediately. Your vehicle lease is under review. Expect further instructions. Brandon frowned. Vehicle lease? That didn't make sense. The BMW was his, wasn't it? He stood there, staring at the screen, something cold creeping into his chest. One thing, he could dismiss. Two, maybe. But this? Like someone was pulling threads, and everything connected to him was starting to unravel. His phone buzzed again, this time Naomi. He froze. A single message. No explanation, no emotion, just one line. Did something happen at work today? Brandon stared at the screen. His chest tightened. Something felt wrong. Not the firing. Not the timing. Her. The way she asked. Calm. Like she already knew. Like she had been waiting for this. He typed quickly. Yeah, it's a mess. We need to talk. Where are you? The message sent. No reply. Brandon lowered the phone slowly. That cold feeling spread deeper. For the first time, he wasn't just angry. He was starting to feel it. Something was happening. And he wasn't in control of it anymore. Behind him, unnoticed, a black sedan pulled into the slot and stopped. A man stepped out, speaking quietly into his phone. Phase 1 complete, he said. Then he looked directly at Brandon, not with curiosity, not with judgment, but with recognition, awaiting further instructions. Brandon barely made it home before the next problem hit. He slammed the front door behind him, pacing across the living room, his mind still stuck in the conference room. The folder was still in his hand, crumpled slightly at the edges. This doesn't make sense, he muttered, more to himself than to Amber. She was sitting on the couch, knees pulled in, her phone in her hand, but not really looking at it. Her makeup had smudged slightly. Not crying, just shaken. They can't just fire us like that, she said. There has to be something we can do. Brandon didn't answer right away. He dropped the folder on the coffee table and ran a hand through his hair. They said it was policy, he said. Some clause about relationships. Amber let out a short, bitter laugh. That's ridiculous. People date at work all the time. Not like this, Brandon snapped, then immediately softened his tone. I mean, maybe not inside the same department structure. He was thinking out loud now, trying to make sense of it, trying to find the angle, trying to find control. His phone buzzed. Another message. He opened it. Your company vehicle lease has been terminated. Please arrange return within 24 hours. Brandon frowned. What now? Amber asked. The car, he said slowly. They're taking the car. Amber blinked. What do you mean taking it? It's yours. That's what I thought. He pulled up the lease agreement on his phone, scrolling fast, his finger jittering slightly. There it was. Fine print. Company-issued vehicle. Conditional on employment status. Terminations equals immediate repossession. His chest tightened. That's okay. Fine. It's just a lease, he said, trying to dismiss it. But it didn't feel small. It felt like something was stacking, layer by layer. His phone buzzed again, another unknown number. He hesitated before opening it. This time, it wasn't a message, it was a call, he answered. Mr. Mitchell, a professional voice said, calm and detached. This is Capital Bank. We're calling regarding your corporate credit account. My account? Brandon said, frowning. Yes. The account linked to your employee status. It has been flagged for review following your termination. Brandon felt his stomach drop slightly. Flagged for what? For ownership clarification and outstanding balance transfer. What balance? There was a pause, papers shuffling on the other end. Approximately $31,000. The number hit harder than anything so far. That's not possible, Brandon said immediately. I've been paying that. The account was funded through a corporate account. The voice replied. You were listed as an authorized user. Authorized user. Not owner. Brandon's grip on the phone tightened. So what does that mean? He asked. It means the primary account holder has revoked access and disputed certain charges. The balance now falls to you personally. The room felt quieter, too quiet. Amber was watching him now, her expression changing. What's wrong? She asked. Brandon didn't answer. Because for the first time, he didn't know what to say. I'll figure it out, he muttered into the phone, then hung up. What happened? Amber pressed. He looked at her, really looked at her, then said, The credit card, it wasn't mine. Her face tightened. What do you mean it wasn't yours? You've been using it for over a year. I thought it was mine. You thought? Brandon didn't respond, because now, as he stood there, something else surfaced. A memory, the card arriving in the mail. No application, no approval process. Just given. He had accepted it without question, because it fit the story he believed, that he was moving up, that he deserved it. His phone buzzed again. Another message, this one from the dealership. Vehicle repossession scheduled for today. Please have keys available. Brandon let out a slow breath. They're coming for the car today. Amber stood up now. Okay. This is getting out of control, she said. First the jobs, now the car? What is happening? Brandon shook his head. I don't know. But that wasn't true anymore. He didn't know everything. But he knew this wasn't random. It was too precise. Too connected. His eyes moved around the house. The furniture, the kitchen. The couch Amber was standing next to. Everything suddenly looked different. Did you ever see the mortgage statements? He asked suddenly. Amber blinked. What? The house says. Did you ever see any paperwork? Bills? Anything? She frowned. No. You said Naomi handled that. Brandon's jaw tightened. I didn't say that, he said slowly. She said that. He walked to the kitchen countertop, pulling open a drawer. Nothing. Another. Still nothing. No documents. No bills. No statements. Just empty space where things should have been. Amber's voice was quieter now. Brandon, what are you thinking? He didn't answer, because the thought forming in his head didn't make sense. Not yet. But it was there. Growing. His phone buzzed again. This time, a knock at the door followed it. 3 sharp knocks. Professional. Brandon froze. Amber looked at him. Are you going to get that? He walked slowly to the door, opened it. A woman in a dark suit stood there holding a folder. 2 men stood behind her, not threatening. Just present, Mr. Mitchell, she asked. Yeah, I'm with Property Management Services. We represent the trust that owns this property. The words landed strangely. What trust? Brandon asked. The BW Holdings Trust. Something about that name felt familiar, but he couldn't place it. There must be a mistake, he said quickly. This is my house. The woman didn't argue. She simply opened the folder and handed him a document. According to public records, this property was purchased outright 4 years ago by the trust. There is no mortgage in your name. Brandon stared at the paper. The address matched. The purchase date matched. The amount paid in full, cash. That's not possible, he said, his voice lower now. You've been occupying the property under a private arrangement, she continued. That arrangement has been terminated. You have 30 days to vacate. Amber stepped closer behind him. What? She said, her voice rising. We live here. The woman didn't react. I understand this is difficult, she said evenly. But the legal documentation is clear. Brandon's blurred slightly as he looked down at the page again. The name, the ownership, the trust. Everything lined up, except one thing, his understanding of it. He had never owned this house, not even partly, not even for a second. His phone buzzed in his hand. He didn't want to look, but he did. A new message. From Naomi. Short. Simple. Did they explain everything yet? Brandon's breath caught. He looked up slowly. The woman in front of him, the document in his hand, the house behind him, Amber standing there. Everything suddenly felt connected. But the picture was still incomplete. And for the first time, he was afraid to finish it. Brandon stood frozen in the doorway, Naomi's message still glowing on his screen. Did they explain everything yet? It didn't read like a question. It read like control. Like she already knew the answer. The woman in the suit waited patiently, hands folded over the folder, while the two men behind her stood silent and still. They weren't threatening, but they didn't need to be. Their presence alone made it clear this wasn't negotiable. Amber stepped forward, her voice sharp now. This is insane. There has to be some mistake. He lives here. We both do. The woman glanced at her briefly, then returned her attention to Brandon. You were allowed to reside here under a private arrangement. That arrangement has ended. We are simply delivering formal notice. Allowed? Brandon repeated, his voice tightening. You're saying I was allowed to live in my own house? It is not your house, Mr. Mitchell. The words landed heavier this time, because now, with Naomi's message in his hand, they no longer felt abstract, they felt targeted. Brandon looked down at the document again. His eyes moved slowly over the lines, the trust name, the purchase date, Scofirst, the full payment, no mortgage, no loan, no signature from him, nothing tying the property to his name. Just one line that caught his attention more than anything else. Authorized occupant. He swallowed. Who owns the trust? He asked. The woman didn't hesitate. That information is not publicly disclosed beyond legal representation. But someone owns it. Yes. And they're the one doing this. They are the one who has terminated your occupancy, yes. Brandon's grip on the paper tightened. Behind him, Amber let out a breath that sounded more like a scoff. So what? Some rich person just decided to kick us out for fun. The woman didn't respond to that. She simply reached into the folder again and handed Brandon another sheet. This is a formal timeline of compliance, she said. You have 30 days. If you choose to leave sooner, arrangements can be made. Brandon barely heard her, because his phone buzzed again. Another message from Naomi. You should read the second page carefully. His heart hit harder this time. He slowly flipped the document over. There it was. A clause he hadn't noticed. Termination initiated by beneficiary directive. Beneficiary. The word echoed in his mind. He looked up sharply. Who's the beneficiary? He asked. Again, the same calm answer. That information is protected. Amber crossed her arms. This is ridiculous. We're not going anywhere until we talk to whoever owns this place. The woman gave a small, polite nod. You're welcome to pursue legal consultation. Our contact information is included. Then she stepped back slightly. A signal. The conversation was over. Brandon stood there, still holding the papers, while they turned and walked away with quiet efficiency. The door closed. Silence settled in the house. A different kind of silence now. He stood there for a long moment, staring at nothing. Amber broke first. What the hell is going on? She demanded. First the jobs, then the car, now the house. This isn't normal. Brandon didn't answer right away, because now, for the first time, he wasn't trying to fix it. He was trying to understand it. He walked slowly back into the living room, his mind racing in a way it hadn't before. Not panic. Pattern. He picked up his phone again. Naomi's message still sat there. He typed. What did you do? The reply came almost instantly. I didn't do anything you didn't ask for. His brow furrowed. What does that mean? This time, there was a pause, long enough to make his chest tighten again. Then, you told me to leave. I did. The words felt simple. But something underneath them wasn't. Something controlled, deliberate. Amber watched him, her eyes narrowing. Why are you texting her? Brandon didn't look up. Because she knows something. Amber let out a short laugh. Of course she knows something. She's been manipulating you for years. That word again. Manipulating. He had used it before, believed it. But now it didn't sit the same way. He looked around the house again. Every detail suddenly felt intentional. The furniture he never questioned. The bills he never saw. The upgrades that just happened. The promotions that seemed to come easier than they should have. Amber stepped closer. We need to figure out a plan. We can't just sit here. He nodded. Slowly, yeah. But his voice didn't match the word, because a plan meant understanding. And understanding meant going back. Back to the beginning. back to things he ignored, back to things he assumed. He moved to the small office space near the hallway. His laptop sat there, untouched since that morning. He opened it. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then he typed Naomi's full name, the one he had used casually, the one he never thought twice about. Search results filled the screen, mostly empty. Private profiles, basic records, nothing that explained anything. Amber leaned over his shoulder. See? There's nothing. She's nobody. But Brandon didn't stop. He refined the search, added a middle initial, added a location. Still nothing. Then, one result. Buried. A corporate filing. He clicked it. A PDF opened. Complex, structured, legal language layered over ownership records. Then slower because one name appeared again and again. Not Naomi. Not directly, but close enough, an entity tied to her last name. A holding structure. A parent company. His company. His stomach dropped. No? He whispered. Amber leaned closer. What is it? He didn't answer, because his eyes were locked on one line. Managing authority. Executive signatory approval required. The name next to it, redacted. But the initials, they matched. His chest tightened. This isn't real, he said quietly. Amber shook her head. What are you talking about? He turned the screen slightly toward her. Look at this. She frowned, trying to make sense of it. It's just legal stuff. What does that mean? He didn't know how to explain it yet. But he knew one thing. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. This was structure. And he had been inside it the entire time, without ever seeing it. His phone buzzed again. Another message. From Naomi. You're looking in the right place now. His hand went still. A second message followed. If you want the full answer, come to the office tomorrow morning. Brandon stared at the screen. The office. Not his office anymore. Not really. But somehow still connected to her. Amber's voice was tight. What does she want? Brandon didn't look at her. He just said quietly, I think she's about to show me everything, and for the first time he wasn't sure he wanted to see it. Brandon didn't sleep. He sat on the edge of the couch most of the night, the glow of his laptop fading into darkness as the hours dragged on. Amber had gone to bed after another argument, one that ended with her calling Naomi manipulative again, calling the entire situation a setup. But Brandon wasn't arguing anymore. He was thinking. Every detail kept circling back, refusing to settle. The house, the job, the structure he had just glimpsed. None of it felt random. None of it felt like coincidence. And Naomi, she wasn't reacting like someone hurt. She was moving like someone in control. By morning, the silence in the house felt heavier than anything said the night before. Amber appeared in the kitchen, already tense. So what's the plan? She asked, pouring coffee without looking at him. Brandon stood there for a moment before answering. I'm going to the office. She scoffed lightly. Why, they already fired you. He met her eyes this time. Because she told me to. That was enough to shift something. Amber frowned. You're still listening to her? I'm trying to understand what's happening. And you think she's going to just explain everything? No, he said quietly. I think she's going to show me something I've been missing. Amber shook her head, frustrated. You're giving her too much credit. Brandon didn't argue. Because deep down, he already knew he hadn't given her enough. The drive to the office felt different that morning. Not familiar, not routine. Every mile felt like it was pulling him toward something he couldn't undo. The building came into view, the same glass exterior reflecting the gray sky above it. He had walked through those doors hundreds of times, confident, certain. Today he hesitated. Then he stepped inside. The lobby was quiet, too quiet. A few employees moved in the background, but the usual rhythm was off. Conversations stopped quicker. Eyes lingered longer. He felt it, the shift. The receptionist looked up as he approached. There was a brief flicker of recognition, then something else. Not respect, not dismissal. Something cautious. I'm here to see Naomi Carter, he said. The name felt different in his mouth now. The receptionist didn't question it. She didn't ask for clarification. She picked up the phone. Mr. Mitchell is here, she said, a pause. Then she nodded once. Understood. She hung up and looked back at him. You're expected. Please take the elevator to the top floor. Brandon blinked. Top floor. He had never been sent there before. That's executive level, he said almost automatically. She gave a small, polite smile. Yes, sir. Sir. He hadn't heard that from her before. He stepped into the elevator, his reflection staring back at him from the mirrored walls. For the first time, he didn't recognize the man looking back, not because he had changed overnight, but because everything he thought defined him had started to disappear. The elevator climbed higher than he had ever gone. The doors opened, and the difference was immediate. The air felt quieter, controlled. The hallway stretched ahead with sleek design, muted tones, and doors that didn't have nameplates, only access panels. He stepped out slowly. A man in a tailored suit approached him within seconds. "Mr. Mitchell," he said calmly. "This way." Brandon followed without speaking. They walked past glass-walled conference rooms, past offices that felt more like private suites. No noise, no clutter, just precision. At the end of the hall, they stopped in front of a set of double doors. The man paused, then opened them. "She's inside." Brandon stepped in and stopped. The room was expansive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A long table sat off to the side, but his attention wasn't on the space. It was on her. Naomi stood near the window, her back partially turned, sunlight outlining her silhouette. She wasn't dressed like he remembered. No simple work clothes, no quiet presence. She wore something tailored, sharp, controlled. Like she belonged here. Like this was always her place. She turned slowly as he entered and met his eyes. There was no hesitation in her expression, no apology, just calm. "You made it," she said. Her voice was steady, familiar but different. Brandon took a step forward, the weight in his chest pressing harder now. "What is this place?" She glanced around briefly, then back at him. "You've been working here for years. You really don't recognize it?" "This isn't my level," he said. "I've never been here." "No," she replied. "You haven't." Silence stretched between them. Then he held up his phone slightly. "You told me to come. You said you'd show me." "I did. Then start explaining." For a moment she studied him, not with anger, not even with disappointment. Just clarity. "You spent years believing you built something," she said quietly. "Your career, your stability, this house, this life." "I did build it," he shot back. "Did you?" she asked, not raising her voice. The question hit harder than anything she could have shouted. Brandon took another step forward. "Stop doing that. Stop talking like everything is a test. Just tell me what's going on." Naomi exhaled slowly. Then she walked past him, toward the long table, toward a folder already placed there. She opened it, turned it toward him. "Everything you're asking for is in here," she said. Brandon moved closer. His eyes dropped to the documents, corporate filings, ownership structures, names he had seen before but never paid attention to, until now. "Look carefully," she said. His fingers tightened slightly as he flipped the first page. Then the next. Each line felt heavier, more deliberate. His breathing slowed, because the pattern, it was becoming clearer. The same entities, the same structure, the same connections he had started to see the night before. And at the center of it, a single line. Executive authority holder. His eyes locked onto it. Then, slowly, he looked up. At her. "You knew all of this," he said. Naomi didn't answer right away. She just held his gaze. And then she reached into the folder and pulled out one final document. She placed it in front of him. "Read the signature." Brandon looked down, and for a moment everything inside him went completely still. Brandon's fingers hovered over the document, but they didn't move, not at first, because something inside him already knew what he was about to see. And once he saw it, there would be no going back. "Read it," Naomi said quietly. Her voice wasn't forceful. It didn't need to be. Brandon lowered his eyes again. The signature sat at the bottom of the page, clean, precise, not hidden, not disguised. Just a name. Naomi Carter. His chest tightened. He blinked once. Then again, like his eyes might correct themselves. They didn't. His voice faltered. "That's not possible." Naomi didn't react. She just watched him. "You're looking at an executive authorization file," she said. "Every major decision in the company requires that signature." Brandon shook his head slowly, stepping back from the table. "No, that doesn't make sense. You worked under me. You reported to— I didn't report to you." The interruption was calm, but final. Brandon's jaw tightened. "Then what was all of this?" "The job, the position, the way I stayed quiet," she finished for him. He didn't answer, because that was exactly it. She had stayed quiet, for years. Naomi stepped closer to the table and rested her hand lightly on the documents. You were given a role, title, opportunities, all of them structured within a system you never questioned. I earned those, he said, more sharply now. I worked for everything I had. I know you worked, she replied. That was never the problem. The words landed differently than he expected. Not dismissive, not mocking. Just factual. And you let me believe it was mine, he pushed. Naomi held his gaze. You needed to believe that. Why? The question came faster this time. Angrier. Because every time I tried to show you something real, you measured it against money, she said. Against status. Against what you thought success looked like. That's not true. It is, she said, still calm. You just didn't notice when it started. Silence stretched between them. Brandon looked back at the papers again. The structure. The authority. The signature. All of it tied to her. You're saying you own the company, he said slowly. Naomi didn't answer directly. Instead, she turned another page in the folder and slid it toward him. Look at the parent entity, she said. He followed her hand. Read the lines, then read them again. The name was there, the same one he had seen in the filing the night before, the same one tied to everything, and beneath it, ultimate controlling interest. His throat went dry. You're the controlling party, he said. Naomi didn't correct him. That was enough. Brandon let out a slow breath, stepping back again like the room had shifted. This doesn't make any sense, he muttered. If you had all of this, why live the way you did? Why stay in that house like it was nothing? Why let me? Throw me out, she finished. The words were quiet, but they cut clean. He looked at her, something tightening behind his eyes now. I didn't know, he said. Naomi nodded once. That's the point, I thought. I know what you thought, she said. There was no anger in her voice, and somehow that made it worse. You thought I had nothing, she continued. That I depended on you, that you were the one holding everything together. Brandon opened his mouth, then closed it again. Because he had thought that. Every decision, every argument, every time he dismissed her, it came from that belief. I never asked you to prove anything, Naomi said softly. I never asked you to compete. I just asked you to see me. The words landed deeper than anything else she had said. Because they weren't about money or power. They were about something he had ignored long before any of this. Brandon looked away, toward the window. The city stretched out below them, sharp and distant. How long? He asked after a moment. How long what? How long have you been this? He said, gesturing vaguely at the room, the building, everything. Naomi took a breath. A long time, she said. Long before you met me. And you just hid it? I protected it, she corrected. And I protected myself. From me? From what people become when they know, she said. He didn't respond to that, because now he was starting to understand exactly what she meant. The silence settled again, heavy, unavoidable. Finally, Brandon turned back to her. So what happens now, he asked. Naomi didn't hesitate. You already know what happens, she said. His chest tightened again. Do I? She held his gaze. You ended the relationship the moment you decided I didn't matter, she said. Everything after that is just consequence. Brandon swallowed. This isn't just about us anymore, he said, gesturing to the documents. This affects everything. My job. My position, your employment has already been terminated, she said calmly. He flinched slightly. I figured that out, he muttered. And the house? He pushed. You received formal notice. And the rest? He asked. My accounts? My assets? Naomi's expression didn't change. Anything tied to corporate structures has already been reviewed, she said. Anything in your personal name remains yours. The distinction was clear, precise, and devastating, because it meant everything he thought defined his life had never truly belonged to him. Brandon let out a breath, running a hand through his hair. So that's it? He asked quietly. You just take everything back? Naomi's eyes softened slightly. I didn't take anything from you, she said. I just stopped holding it in place and the words lingered because they felt true. In a way he couldn't argue with, and Nangsang's long silence followed. Then Brandon straightened slightly, not fully composed, but not collapsing either. Why bring me here? He asked. Naomi glanced at the documents again, then back at him. Because you deserve to understand what you threw away, she said. He held her gaze. And now I do? She didn't answer. She stepped back, creating space, distance, finality. Brandon stood there for a moment longer. Then he nodded once, a small movement, but deliberate. I'll leave, he said. Naomi didn't stop him. Didn't argue, didn't soften it. She simply watched as he turned and walked toward the door. His hand reached for the handle, paused, then dropped. He didn't look back. He couldn't. Because if he did, he might say something he couldn't take back. The door closed behind him, and the silence that followed felt heavier than anything before. Naomi stood still for a moment. Then her phone buzzed. A message from legal. Board meeting scheduled. Full disclosure required. She read it once, then locked the screen. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, not hidden anymore. Not waiting! Just ready. She walked back to the table, gathered the documents, and closed the folder. Outside, the city moved like nothing had changed. But inside, everything had. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Short, direct. Media inquiry received. Story may go public. Naomi stared at the screen for a second longer, then typed a single response. Proceed. She set the phone down, and for the first time she didn't hide anything. The first headline went live before noon. Brandon didn't see it at first. He was still in his car, parked across the street from the office building, staring at nothing. His hands rested on the steering wheel, but he hadn't turned the engine on. He hadn't moved since walking out. His phone buzzed once, then again, then it didn't stop. He finally looked down. Dozens of notifications, messages, calls, alerts. His name, her name, the company, all of it tangled together. He opened the first link without thinking. The article loaded quickly. Senior executive terminates relationship with secret company owner, internal power structure revealed. His chest tightened. He kept reading. The details weren't vague. They were specific. The house, the termination, the corporate structure, even the trust. Someone had put it all together. Or someone had allowed it to be put together. Brandon leaned back in his seat, the air in the car suddenly feeling too thin. Another notification popped up, a different outlet. Man loses job, home after relationship with hidden billionaire CEO ends billionaire. The word hit differently when it wasn't speculation, when it wasn't abstract, when it was tied to a face he knew. A woman he had dismissed. Another message came through, from a colleague. What the hell is going on? Is this real? He didn't answer, because he didn't know how to. He kept scrolling, more articles, more commentary, people dissecting something they had never seen, but somehow understood better than he had. He locked his phone and dropped it onto the passenger seat. Silence returned. But it wasn't empty, it was loud, because now everyone knew, and he had been the last one. Back at the house, Amber found out the same way. Her voice cut through the total before Brandon even said hello. What did you do? She demanded. I didn't do anything, he said quietly. That's not what this looks like, she snapped. This is everywhere. Do you understand that? Everywhere. My friends are texting me. People are asking questions. He closed his eyes briefly. I know. You knew? She shot back. You knew this was going to happen? No, he said. I didn't. There was a pause, then her voice shifted, lower, sharper. So it's true? She asked. She owns everything? Brandon didn't answer right away, because saying it out loud made it real in a way nothing else had. Yes, he said finally. The silence on the other end stretched longer this time. Then why didn't you tell me? Amber asked. The question landed wrong, not because it was unfair, but because of what it implied. I didn't know, he said. You're telling me you lived with her for years and had no idea, she pressed. That's exactly what I'm telling you. Amber let out a breath, but it wasn't disbelief anymore. It was calculation. So what does that mean for us, she asked. Brandon frowned slightly. What do you mean? I mean, if she owns the company, if she controls everything, then what happens next? There it was. Not concern, not confusion. Concern for position, for what could still be salvaged. Brandon's grip on the steering wheel tightened. There is no us in that, he said. Amber hesitated. You don't know that, she replied quickly. If we handle this right, if you talk to her. No, the word came out sharper than anything he had said before. It surprised both of them. She's not going to fix this, Brandon continued. And I'm not going to ask her to. You're just going to walk away, Amber demanded. I already did, he said quietly. Another silence. Then her tone changed again. Defensive now. So that's it? After everything, you're just giving up? Brandon exhaled slowly. No, he said. I'm just done pretending I understand something I never did. He ended the call before she could respond, and for the first time he didn't feel pulled back. Back in the office, Naomi stood in front of a conference room filled with people who no longer saw her the way they had before. Executives, board members, legal advisors, all of them seated, all of them waiting. The air was different now, not uncertain, focused, because the truth was no longer hidden. She stepped to the front of the room and placed a single folder on the table. "Everything you've seen in the media is accurate," she said. "No hesitation, no spin, just fact." A murmur moved through the room, then settled. One of the board members leaned forward. "And your position moving forward?" Naomi met his gaze. "I'll be stepping into full operational visibility," she said, effective immediately. Another voice spoke up. "There will be scrutiny. I'm aware. Reputational impact will be managed," she said calmly. She didn't rush, didn't defend. She simply stood there, in control. The meeting moved quickly after that. Decisions were made, structures confirmed, authority clarified. Nothing chaotic, nothing reactive, just correction. Afterward, she returned to her office alone. The city wasn't stretched out below her again, unchanged, but she wasn't standing in the background anymore. Her phone buzzed once more. A message. "Unknown number." She hesitated for a second. I opened it. "I didn't know how to see you before." No name, no explanation. But she didn't need one. She stared at the words for a moment, then locked the screen, not angry, not shaken, just clear. She walked to the window and stood there, the reflection staring back at her. Not hidden, not reduced, just herself. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. Her phone buzzed again, this time from legal. Divorce paperwork draft ready for review. Naomi didn't respond immediately. She looked out over the city one more time, then picked up the phone and typed, "Send it." The first time Naomi walked into the building without lowering her presence, people noticed before she said a word. It wasn't louder, it wasn't dramatic. It was simply visible. Once just a place she passed through quietly felt different now. Heads turned, conversations softened, not out of fear, but recognition. The name they had only seen in documents, in approvals, in decisions that shaped the company, they now attached it to a face. Her face. She didn't pause for it. She moved forward at the same steady pace she always had, heels echoing lightly across polished floors. The difference wasn't in her steps. It was in the fact that she no longer needed to make herself smaller. The elevator ride to the top floor was silent, but not empty. A few executives stood beside her, careful now, respectful in a way that wasn't rehearsed. One of them nodded slightly when she met his eyes. Not deference. Acknowledgement. Inside the boardroom, everything had already been prepared. Documents aligned, screens ready, people seated, waiting. Naomi took her place at the head of the table without hesitation. No one questioned it. The meeting began, and for the first time, her voice carried without restraint. Clear. Direct, unapologetic. She didn't over-explain. She didn't soften decisions to be liked. The same way she always had. Only now, everyone could see it. There were no surprises in the agenda. Restructuring finalized. Strategic direction confirmed. External communication aligned. The company didn't shake under scrutiny. It stabilized. Because the person who had always been holding it together was no longer hidden behind signatures and silence. When the meeting ended, people stayed for a moment longer than necessary, not because they had more to say, because they understood something had shifted, not power. Truth. Later that afternoon, Naomi stood alone in her office again, the city stretching out beneath her in quiet rhythm. The glass reflected her back, sharp, composed, present. Her phone buzzed once. A message, Brandon. She stared at the name for a second longer than she expected, then opened it. "I see it now. All of it. I was wrong." The words were simple, no excuses, no demands, just late. Naomi didn't feel anger that had passed somewhere between the silence of the car ride and the final meeting in the boardroom. She'd feel satisfaction either, just distance. She typed slowly. "I hope you understand why I can't go back." She watched the message sit for a moment, then sent it. There was no reply, and she didn't wait for one. That evening, she left the building without the weight she had carried for years. No secrets to manage, no version of herself to maintain, just the truth, finally aligned with her life. Outside, the air felt different, not because the world had changed, because she had stopped adjusting herself to fit into it. Across the street, a familiar figure stood near the curb. "Ethan." He didn't step forward immediately, just met her eyes, offering a small, steady smile. The kind that didn't demand anything, didn't assume anything, just present. Naomi walked toward him. "You didn't have to wait," she said. "I wanted to," he replied. No pressure, no performance, just a choice. They stood there for a moment, the noise of the city moving around them, distant and unimportant. "You look lighter," he said. Naomi considered that. "I am," she answered. Not because everything had been fixed, but because she had stopped carrying what was never hers to prove. They began walking together, not in a rush, not toward anything defined, just forward. For the first time in a long time, Naomi didn't think about what she had lost. She thought about what she had chosen. And that made all the difference. Some people lose everything chasing more. Others lose nothing by finally choosing themselves. If you've ever had to walk away from something that no longer respected you, share your story below.